The information provided by Trading Forex Price Action to you does not constitute personal financial advice. The information provided is of a general nature only and does not take into account your individual objectives, financial situation, or needs. It should not be used, relied upon, or treated as a substitute for specific professional advice.
Weekly Forecast.
Hey guys, this is a weekly forecast for September 27th through October 1st of 2021. Okay, let's start off with the dollar-yen pair. This is a monthly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So ultimately, I'm expecting price to reach this pivot low right here at 101. But before that, we're talking about the pullback to 104, then to 109, and then down to 101. So in the long term, I'm still short biased right back down to this 101 pivot low. However, on the weekly chart, since there's more short strength than long strength, in the short term, I am short biased right back down to this pivot low right here. Okay, let's talk entries. Okay, this is a weekly chart. Let me run you by the setup I've been looking at for the past couple of months. So there's a strong short trade that formed right here with a stop loss at this pivot low right here. And so I took a long entry right up to these 109 levels right here, where I took out the entire position due to the possibility that this long trade hit its target at a monthly strong trend line at this level right here. However, as price pulled back in these areas, I was mentioning there was still long momentum left on the lower time frame, so price pushed up another leg and came right back down. Now at this point right here, there was another strong daily long trade that formed with a stop loss at this pivot low, and so I took another long entry. However, I took out 90% of the entire position, roughly at these levels right here. Again, due to the possibility that this last weekly long trade target was in fact hit at this level. However, right after on the daily chart, there were many weak short trades that formed consecutively. Now, the context of a strong long trade and then consecutive weak short trades is a common price action setup that shows short-term long strength. And so I left 10% of that long position in all the way up to these levels right here, where I took out another 5% at another strong monthly trend line that runs right through these levels. And then 2 weeks later, there was a strong weekly short trade that formed right here. And so at this point, I took out the remaining 5% of that long position out. And then moreover, a week later, there was a relatively weak long trade that formed right here. So at the current moment, this weekly bias is short. Or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot low right here before reaching this pivot high, where the stop loss was minimized at this point right here. However, if you recall, I did not take a short entry due to this area being the month of August and consequently having low liquidity. And then price just ranged about for the last couple of weeks right here. However, yesterday, there was a pullback to this 110.65 levels right here. And so I took a short entry at this 110.65 levels right here, with a stop loss at this pivot high right here, and its main target being at this pivot low right here, and possible extension targets right back down to the last daily long trade stop loss level, which is at this pivot low right here. Alright, so let me go into more detail about this short trade I took yesterday. So let's go over to the daily chart. Okay, so on this daily chart, yesterday I took a short entry at this 110.65 levels right here, with a stop loss at this pivot high right here, and its main target being right here. And extension targets at this pivot low right here, where the last daily long trade stop loss level is at this pivot low. Now, if you recall, I've been looking at this setup for a while, and this initial pullback for that short entry, like I mentioned earlier, I did not take because of low liquidity due to it being the month of August in this area. And then moreover, in these areas right here, I didn't take the short entry because price was not giving enough of a pullback to entice me to take a short entry. And then finally yesterday, price pulled back to this 110.65 levels, where I was mentioning I would take a short entry, for the risk reward for this short setup will be decent. Okay, and moreover, since price does seem to have a lot of momentum long, there may be a further pullback, minimizing the risk for another short trade even more. However, I will not be taking a second entry short in this case. Now that's due to the possibility that price may have hit a target at this level right here. So let me go ahead and show you that. Let's go over to the monthly chart. Okay, so on this monthly chart, that possible target that price may have reached are based on two price elements. Now, one is this small gap right here. Let me go ahead and show you the levels for that. Okay, the upper level of this gap is at 109.67, and the lower end will be at 109.23. Now, initially when that weekly short trade formed in this area, the only price element that was showing long strength was this small gap on this monthly chart. However, as price ranged for the last couple of weeks, price now has more long elements that further contribute to long strength. Now, that'll be two trend lines. One trend line is from this pivot to this pivot right here. You can see how price never surpassed or broke it out. And moreover, this horizontal trend line right here, which is attached to this pivot right here. So at this point, due to my main target being at this pivot low right here, these two new price elements that are adding long strength may have been enough to be a target for that weekly short trade. And therefore, even if price does give a further pullback, further minimizing the risk for another short trade with the stop loss at this pivot high, I will not be taking another short entry. Okay, and moreover, in terms of abort strategies, the only way I will abort this short entry for the time being, if there's any compact long price action that forms on the lower time frames, which shows strong long strength, at that point I will change my bias from short into long, and moreover consider taking a long entry with a stop loss at the pivot low of the hypothetical compact long price action and its main target being at the pivot high where the last weekly short trade formed. Okay, alright, let's go on to the euro dollar. Alright, and if you're having trouble understanding what I'm talking about in terms of strong short trades and weekly biases, please watch my price action trading course, for that course is designed to provide you the necessary information so you can understand these forecasts. Okay, this is a Euro USD monthly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So since this price action right here is very strong short, and this move still having a ways to go, in the long term I'm short biased right back down to this pivot low right here. However, because of a breakout of this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here, and that breakout being right here, in the medium term I'm long biased right back up to this pivot high right here. And moreover, on the weekly chart, since the weekly short trades main target was hit at this level right here, in the short term I'm neutral biased. Okay, let's talk entries. Okay, this is a weekly chart. Let me run it by the setup I've been looking at for the past couple of months. So there was a strong short trade that formed here, and then a week long trade formed. So as price pulled back, I was looking for short entries right back down to this pivot low right here. And then another week long trade formed. So again, as price pulled back, I was looking for short entries again, right back down to this pivot low as a target. And moreover, another week long trade formed. And at this point, the bias was stating that price is likely to reach this pivot low right here before reaching this pivot high. And so as price pulled back to these levels, I took a short entry at this 1.2250 level right here, with a stop loss at this pivot high right here, and its main target being down here. And then in the following weeks, there was another strong short trade that formed right here. So at this point, I moved the stop loss of that initial short trade from this pivot high right down to this pivot high right here. And moreover, as price pulled back on this candle right here, since the risk was minimized for a short entry, for the stop loss is now at this pivot high right here, I took another short entry at 1.2130 at these levels right here, again with the stop loss right here, and its main target at this pivot low right here. And furthermore, as price fell down to these levels, I took out 90% of both positions at roughly these levels right here, due to trade management reasons. And then the following week, price came down to hit that main target at the last long trade stop loss level, which is at this pivot low right here. And then as price pulled back in these areas right here, although the bias was neutral on this weekly chart, due to the fact that this last weekly short trade already hit its main target at this pivot low right here, there are also no signs of strong long strength. And so at the current moment, I still have 10% of both positions in to see if we could get to extension targets below. Okay, moreover, there's some price action themes that happen in this area right here. So let me just go ahead and explain those to you. Let's go over to the 4-hour chart. Okay, so on this 4-hour chart, that weekly short trade's main target was hit roughly in these areas right here. So at that point, the weekly bias became neutral. And then in this leg right here, there was a lot of short-term long strength. And then moreover in this leg right here, it was actually the opposite, in which there was short-term short strength. Now let me show you how I knew there would be short-term short strength in the earlier areas of this leg up. Okay, so if you're looking for short-term long with short strength, a common phenomenon that happens is that, for example, on this pivot right here, there was weak long strength. And then over here at this pivot right here, there was strong short strength. However, price still came up to stop out the stop loss of that strong short trade stop loss level, which is right here. Now, the moment this type of situation happens, when there's strong short strength against weak long strength, but still price pulls right back to stop out the pivot high where that short strength was measured, this situation in itself predicts short-term long strength. And then moreover, the same thing happened on this leg down also. So this time there was strong long strength and weak short strength. However, price still pushed down to the pivot low of where that long strength was measured right here. So this type of situation often predicts short-term short strength. Okay, so that's just one thing to keep in mind. Now, moreover, like I mentioned earlier, that weekly bias's main target was hit at this level, and thus the weekly bias is neutral at this moment. And that's also reflected on this 4-hour chart by how there was strong short-term long strength. However, it is immediately followed by strong short-term short strength. So basically the long strength and short strength are canceling each other out, and thus the neutral bias. Okay, so at this point, I'm looking for a new daily or weekly bias to form. So let me show you what I'm looking for on the weekly chart. Okay, so again on this weekly chart, since that last weekly short trade's main target was hit at this level right here, and thus the bias is neutral, at this point I'm waiting for another long trade to form, and then another short trade to form, and then I'll measure the strength of the long pivot against the short pivot. And if there's more long strength than short strength, then the bias will be long. So in other words, I'll be looking for long entries with a stop loss at this pivot low right here and its main target at this pivot high. And moreover, opposingly, if there's more short strength than long strength, then the bias will be short. And so I'll be looking for short entries with a stop loss at this pivot high and its main target being right down here. Okay, so I'll be looking for this type of bias setup also on the daily chart. All right, so lastly, let me just explain to you some targets I'm looking at for the remaining 10% of both those short positions. So let's go over to the monthly chart. Okay, so on this monthly chart, the first thing I want to see for the remainder of the two short positions is for monthly price to get through both these gap levels, one at this level right here, and the other one at this level right here. Now let me go ahead and show you the levels for those. Okay, so this upper gap's upper level is at 1.1780, and the lower level will be at 1.1712. And this smaller gap right here, the upper level, will be at 1.1687, and the lower level will be at 1664. So again, the first thing I want to see is for monthly price to close past these gaps. Now at that point, that may open up a route to lower levels. So let me show you a level I'm considering taking out another 5% of both those positions. All right, let me just zoom out here. All right, so like I showed you earlier on the overview, there's a very prominent trend line from this pivot right here to this pivot right here, with a breakout at this level right here. Now, if price could initially close past these gap levels on the monthly chart, and then moreover fall right back down to this prominent trend line right here, at this point, I'm willing to take another 5% out of both those short positions. And then moreover, like I was mentioning earlier, if a new bias forms on the weekly chart where there's more long strength than short strength, that is another case where I will close the positions for the remainder of those two short trades. All right, so that's it for the weekly forecast. I hope you guys have a great week, and thanks for watching. Okay, bye.